Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
To be customer-centric in your contact center, you need more than feedback. You need performance management and trusted agent scorecards, which is exactly what you get with the award-winning external quality monitoring program from Customer Relationship Metrics. Get over the hump now by going to customersgradethecall.com/fast and getting a $7,500 rapid results package for free. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because we get the opportunity to meet with somebody who is one of the leading experts in an area that impacts us all. Eric Mondschein was born in Flushing, New York, but his parents soon moved across the Hudson River to Rockland County, where he grew up in the country in Muncie, New York, and lived at 12 College Road. Eric has had a multifaceted and diverse professional career. After he obtained a master's degree in delinquency prevention, he served as a floor supervisor in a maximum security detention center. And after receiving his doctorate in law and education, he held several positions in the U.S. government and taught law and education at the undergraduate and graduate levels at several colleges and universities. Eric directed an award-winning law-related education program for the New York State Bar Association from 1980 through 94, and in 93, he was the recipient of the American Bar Association's Isidore Star Award for Exemplary Achievement in Law-Related Education. Eric recently authored Life at 12 College Road, which is a collection of short stories about growing up in America in the late 50s and 60s. He also recently co-authored a monograph and supplement, Sexual Harassment and Bullying, Similar but Not the Same, that explores the current legal developments concerning sexual harassment and bullying in K through 12 education. When Eric is not writing or consulting, you can usually find him fishing or shooting at his home in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York, where he lives with his wife, Jenny. Eric Mondschein, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am ready to go for that hump.
All right. So I've given our Legion a little bit about you, but can you share what your current passion is so that we can get to know you better?
My current passion. That's a good question. And I think I would say that since returning from Israel in 2006, my passion has been writing. And I began a website or a blog where I share my opinions, commentary, rants, if you will, on issues confronting all of us today, as well as poetry and even recipes.
Now, I had mentioned that I was excited for you to be on the show because you've been one of the leading experts for many years on one of the things that affects us all. And it's really this whole issue in regards to the things that we do to affect and impact others that could be so damaging, as well as create some heinous bad habits that we see manifesting themselves out, in society today. And that's, violation of our fellow human being. And then oftentimes we find that in the workplace. I mean, it's not like these things just create or get developed in the workplace. They start at an early age.
Yes, they do. Actually, from elementary school on up. My generation, your generation, and those following us, many of us have just felt this was part of childhood. This is what we got through, whether it was being bullied or we were the bullier. And that's got to stop because it's not okay. And today's society seems more prepared to confront it and not just accept it. And so we see many efforts being done in schools, in the community, on television with children's shows, explaining that it's not okay to be a bully and you don't have to be bullied. And that's something that even takes place in the workplace. Many of us today understand who the bullies are where we work and who are the bullied. And it's not okay. And as a matter of fact, in today's society and at work, it's illegal. And there are repercussions not only for the company, but for the individuals involved.
Even oftentimes, though, when you start talking about that illegal piece, it doesn't necessarily, mean that it's going to stop happening.
No.
There's speed limit signs posted all over the place, but I'm afraid I break that one quite often. And so when you start thinking about some of these things, they just are going to happen anyway. And goodness knows the internet has made and created a whole different level of bullying that we have never seen before.
No, and it actually has its own name now. We call it cyberbullying. And it's terrific because now you can be the little skinny kid, and yet with the anonymity of the internet, you can say and do things to other people that you would never dream of saying to their face. And unfortunately, many of the cyberbullies end up being girls. And it's something that has unfortunately resulted in a number of suicides of young people. So it's not just something that, well, you can get over it. We've all been bullied. But this now has been leading towards suicide of young people. And that's definitely not okay.
With the amount of, experience, exposure, knowledge gain, all of the things that we talk about when it means to become, one of the leading experts in a certain area, if you were to say that society is headed in a particular direction, what direction would you say that it was heading to?
Oh, wow. I wish you had asked me what direction I wished it was heading to. But if we're going to deal with the direction we're heading in now, I can't be optimistic. I see a darkness, an overshadowing. I see people engulfed in fear, anxiety, and a lot of it has to do with our own leaders and the lack of leadership. And I don't want to get into politics, if you will, but I have never in any of my understandings or definitions of leadership saw where it means leading from behind. To lead means being out in front. And that also means taking risks. And sure, you can have others lead. That doesn't mean you're leading from behind. It means you've delegated or asked others to lead. To be a leader doesn't mean you're better than those who follow. It means you just happen to be in the lead and people are going to follow you because they either trust you, which I think is the most important key, is trustworthiness, or you all have a general mission, but you may have a clearer understanding, which puts you in front. And something that in the years that I spent living and working in Israel, I found fascinating because in Israel, the officers in the Israeli army are known for saying, follow me. Not you go first, but follow me. It's the leader who takes the risk. It's the leader who gets people to what? Follow them. And that means being out in front. And so I guess going back to your general question, I think there's a malaise in this country. There's a fear. There's an anxiety because we don't know what to expect tomorrow. Where we used to have a clear understanding that tomorrow was always going to be better than today, I think now you have many people concerned that tomorrow may be worse than today. And that has to be changed by us. No one else can change that for us.
That's so true. And there's so many things, and thank you for sharing that I started thinking about as you were talking. And one of the things that I have, through my own growth, have come to the realization that, when you think about leading, that it can't just be one person, is that everybody has to step up. And so so many people have talked about, servant leadership and serving others and being that one who's in front and, being that example is that. But the fact is that we all have that responsibility. And so I talk about servant teamwork, is that we all have to collaborate and work together. And we all have to do what you're talking about in order for us to move the mountain. And we can move it. Some of these societal issues, we can't handle. But we have to have a different mindset. It's not one person that's going to fix it. We have to do it as a collective. In addition to that, we also have to be aware that in order to ignite, change, it's not by using some of those bullying tactics. Because what I often find is that, we're talking about, people who feel like they are wronged or that there is an unjust, is that they do it in such a negative way that it turns toxic. So, Eric, I know with a lot of the things that you have, going on, a lot of experiences you've had. Oh gosh, I can only imagine, being a writer and with all of that you've probably had a lot of, inspiration from different quotes. Is there one or two that you can share to us that can give us a little bit of boost to get over the hump?
I'd be happy to. And for me, it's personal because this is a quote that I took from my wife's uncle, Jack Bogley, who was an Annapolis graduate, and a submarine commander during World War II. And what he said, and he actually had it as a plaque on his submarine and then on all the other ships that he commanded, was, "We will do the best we can with what we have." And I took that to heart. And I actually heard it from him when I was still going to college, because I was actually married very young and I was in college. But from that moment on, I looked at that quote, and I actually, after he passed, I was honored that he bequeathed not only that plaque, which was actually a silver-plated plaque that he had in his captain's quarters. "We will do the best we can with what we have." That and the captain's silver serving set that he bequeathed to me, which was a real honor, with the name of the submarine. But this is what he lived by. And when you think about it, no matter what you do, you have limited resources. You have limited people with whatever experience they bring to the table. And if you understand how to work with them and how to push not only them and yourself, but utilizing the full potential of whatever you have, you can accomplish anything. And so that's always stuck with me.
I think that's a great point. Thanks for sharing, because I think so many times, even having, a 12, a 10, and a 7-year-old at the time, is that, they often start talking about can't doing something because they don't have. And I'm like, you know what? Stop focusing on that. You need to
exactly
focus on what you do have, and utilize that in order to be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, stop thinking about what you don't. Think about what you do.
That's right. If you focus on what you have, you can make the most of it. If you focus on things you don't have, you won't accomplish anything.
Eric, I know that you've had just a wealth of experience in different countries and working with a lot of different leaders, and even where you are today with writing, and gosh, I know there had to be a lot of humps that you've had to get over that have defined you and helped you be, the person who you are today. Is there one that kind of stands out for you that you can share with us so that we can learn?
Yes. And I really like the question. There are many different ones, but I think this was always stood out for me. And that was when I was directing the New York State Bar Association's program. I had come up with an idea of how do we get kids to understand international law, because I felt it was important for even young people to understand that there was such a thing called international law. And so I came up with an idea of, well, what if we have something that they can look at, not read a book, but let's have an activity. And that was to get a school from Canada and a school from New York, since I was in New York, so it's the United States, and let's have them argue a case between the two countries. And the issue really didn't matter. It had to do with water flowing from Canada to New York. And if you put a dam up, how does it affect those living below the dam, in this case, in the United States? And I thought, what would make this exciting? Well, gee, why don't we hold it at the United Nations? And so I learned that in order to have something held at the UN, you had to have a country sponsor you. You just couldn't go in and use one of the big General Assembly rooms. So I contacted the U.S. mission at the UN, which at that time was Jeane Kirkpatrick, who was the U.S. ambassador. And quite frankly, the response I got was not only no, but dismissive. And I have to admit, I hung up the phone and I was livid. I couldn't believe that I would be treated this way. You can say no, but you didn't have to be so dismissive. So I picked the phone up, got the number for the Canadian mission to the United Nations, contacted the Canadian mission, and just asked to speak to the ambassador. And they put him on. And so I presented the case, and they said, sure, we'd love to sponsor you. So being who I am, I then called back the U.S. mission and told them that I got another country to sponsor me, so never mind. And in which case, they said, well, hold on a minute, we'll get. And so then they said, no, we're more than willing to sponsor. And I said, well, I already have a sponsor, but if you'd like to co-sponsor, that would be all right. And so they did. And from that moment, I realized, what's the worst thing that can happen when you ask a question? People can say no. What did I lose? Nothing. So to take that another step, a little later, in the early 90s, the late 80s, I came up with another idea. how can we use the International Court of Justice in The Hague? And so, well, gee, let's see if we can't do something. So I called, and I ended up getting the Chief Justice of the International Court. Actually, they put me through, and I gave him my idea. And that idea was, why don't we have kids from the United States and the Soviet Union not compete against each other, since I said that's what they're all doing all the time. I said, what if we were to get them to work together on coming up with and presenting a plan on reforestation? And the justice said, hold on a minute. So I'm on hold for 10 minutes. This is an incredibly expensive call in the 80s. And at the time I'm waiting, I'm thinking, how am I going to justify this expense on my budget? Anyway, he comes back on. He says, I just had a chance to speak to all of my colleagues and would be delighted. Now, this ended up being the very first time the International Court was used for anything other than hearing real cases. And I then contacted the Soviet Embassy in Washington, having first talked to the State Department, because I didn't want to be put on some list that I was contacting the Soviet Embassy. And the fact that I wanted to have the kids working together, they said, sure, why not? And so we ended up getting schools from the United States, Antwerp, so we would have a European school involved, and the Soviets. And we brought them all together in The Hague, and they presented before the court. Now, what's interesting is that once I put it all together, it was, how do I pay for this? But having done it, I then contacted different corporations and foundations, and they were happy to assist. And it just ask. But if I had done what people first told me was, don't even think of calling the court because it's never been used for anything else, it wouldn't have happened. And yet it did. And so from that moment on, I realized if I'm interested in something, I'm going to pursue it. And even getting a first no means nothing.
Great story. And the part that also stood out to me, blazed, is that it was done in a cooperative, collaborative, positive way. I mean, and with what you were doing, I mean, gosh, great story. Thanks for sharing.
And what was really great is that the kids are still in contact with each other.
Oh my.
That's the part that I found fascinating, is that the kids from the US and Europe, they've all become close friends, and with now the kids who are from Russia, who are now all adults.
Wow. We definitely need to do more of that. Thanks for sharing. I know you've had an amazing, career. You've talked about what your current passions are. I mean, you have so many things going. Being a grandfather, I know that just brings you so much joy as well. If you start thinking about all the things that are on your plate, what are some of your goals? My goals now? Wow. Okay. You got me on that one. I guess I would have to say at this particular stage of my life, the goal is to ensure that my wife and I are comfortable when we finally decide we're done. And I don't even know if that's possible. I don't know if as a human being you can ever say you're done. Because to me that means, you're dead. I mean, so you have to keep doing things. What those things may be, I'm not sure yet. Right now, my wife is still working. I am in a position, fortunately, that I'm able to pursue my writing. And I've had some success in it, which has been good. What's next? I hope I can have more time with my grandchildren before they're too busy for me. And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Developing your company's talent and leadership pipeline can be an overwhelming task, but your burden is over. With ResultPal, you can use the power of practice to develop more leaders faster. Move onward and upward by going to resultpal.com/fast and getting a $750 performance package for free. All right, here we go, Fast Leader listeners. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Eric, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Eric Mondschein, are you ready to Hoedown?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I think today the biggest constraint is time. Now that I'm focused more on writing, I see myself as more of an example to others. And I've been mentoring young people, having my door always open to those who seek my advice. And I've also learned to say, great question. I don't have an answer for that, but maybe we can find it together.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
I would have to say that don't try to be someone you are not, but be all the person that you are.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I think this was also one of my aha moments, and that's that I have always taken no as a challenge, especially when it is suggested that I can't do something. And when I hear no now, and through my career, it was, all right, then let me find the door that will open. And so I don't give up.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Frankly, it's being trustworthy, as I believe it is the most important foundation of a professional or personal life. And it is something my mom and dad taught my brother and I every day by example.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our listeners? It could be from any genre.
Just one. Okay, that's a good question, Jim. I guess I could say The Art of War by Sun Tzu, or The Prince by Machiavelli, or even the collection of speeches by Winston Churchill. But I would have to say Questions of Character, Illuminating the Heart of Leadership Through Literature by Joseph L. Badaracco, Jr. of Harvard Business School. And his other book, Leading Quietly. Those would be the two I would highly recommend, not just one.
Okay, Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Eric Mondschein. Okay, Eric, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take everything. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
Jim, I love the question. I wish I could do it. If it were knowledge, I'd buy Apple and McDonald's stock, without a doubt. But I think the skill that I lacked at 25 was patience. And that is something I wish I had more of even today.
Eric, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader listeners how they can connect with you?
They can connect with me on the web at www.ericmonschein.com. They can also go to my Facebook page, which is Eric Mondschein, and on Twitter, which is at Eric S. Mondschein.
Eric Mondschein, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Woo-hoo! Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.